Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sabrina Rainique, and on this channel we talk about travel, we talk about lifestyle, we talk about finance, and pretty much living our best lives, whatever that means to us. If you're just joining for the first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. So excited to see you. So if you're seeing the title of this video, your girl had $83,000 worth of student debt, and it's pretty crazy. I actually don't think I've ever said that out loud before. So I wanted to film this video so that I can share with you all my plan for paying off my student loans and how I am not somewhere crying in the corner. If you are someone who also has a ton of student debt and you're just looking for some type of help, some type of plan, or maybe some inspiration to know that it can be done, please stick around because I am going to be showing all the details, all the tea of how I plan on paying off all my student debt. Now let's just talk about how they really let a 17-year-old child take out $83,000 in student debt. There was no consultation, there was no like, do you have a plan to pay this off? It was literally like, okay, this is how much you need, this is how much we can give you, sign your name right here. Now that's a whole nother conversation, but I do wish that there were more programs out here or more steps in place so that people really understood what they were getting into. I know for me, I didn't save a dime for college. I wasn't even thinking about it. My parents also didn't really save much for me for college as well, and there were so many expenses that I didn't even know existed. Like when I was taking out loans, I didn't really feel like I had a choice. I wasn't met with other options. It wasn't like, oh, you can take out loans, here are some scholarships, here's some financial aid. It was just kind of like, yeah, loans are your only option. So I was like, okay. And then it also seemed very normalized. It seemed like that's what everyone was doing, and that was just the course that most students took. So I was like, okay, sure, like I'll take it, no big deal. Now, interestingly enough, 42% of Americans who went to college have student debt, and 30% of all Americans have student debt, and their debt averages about $30,000. So throughout college, I did not put a single dime into my student loans. So I had sub and I had unsubsidized loans. So meaning that some of my loans were accruing interest from the moment I accepted them. Now this is kind of crazy, but I never really knew how much I was in debt. I just knew it was a lot. So I didn't want to see the full total because I broke college student. I had no plans on how I was going to pay this off. I just didn't want to see the full number. I was scared, y'all. Like, it really hit me, reality hit me that I needed to pay my loans back. And I was like hustling for a job, and I was like, I need me a high paying job because I have to pay off my student loans. And it's just crazy thinking about it, like the cycle of go to school to get a job, to pay back the loans that you got to go to school. It's just a cycle. But anyway, you guys, I got my little job, so now I'm hype, all right, ready to start working and to now start paying my loans off. Tell me why for the first year, I did not make a single payment on my loans. I was so scared to see how much I owed. I was just like, I can't even, like the anxiety that was in my heart. Every time I looked at my loan service provider, I was just like, I can't. And literally it took me a whole year to even get started. And it's so interesting because I feel like people always talk about like the finance part of money. Yeah, you just invest this amount or you just like save this amount. But people don't talk about like the anxiety that comes along with facing your finances. Like it's not just as easy as putting a plan in place. Like you need to be in the right mindset. You need to feel confident, and like the fact that I was literally so scared for a whole year that I made no financial moves just says a lot about what your mind can do and the place that your mind plays in finances. And that's really why I became baby step mommy when it came to finances, because your mind is really the catalyst for everything that you do when it comes to your finances and anything else, but we're talking about finances here. Your mind is really the catalyst for everything. If the psychology behind it, you are too nervous to do it, you are too anxious to do it, you're not going to do it and you're not going to stick to it. So I say baby steps. I say whatever we feel comfortable with, having that conversation with ourselves, because if we can't process it, it's not going to happen and we're not going to reach our financial goals. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but that's how at least I felt for that year. Please comment below if you can relate, or if I'm just being really extra, let me know in the comments. So now at this point, it's been a year and that it took me to coax myself to finally face that number, okay? So I tallied up all of my student loans and I shed a tear, like just one baby tear down my right eye, because I saw $83,000. Bruh, I wasn't making $83,000, so I was confused as to how I was gonna pay that. I think the main thing for me is when I graduated, I was gonna be living life, okay? Doing all the things that, you know, a broke college student couldn't do. I was gonna be traveling. I was gonna be eating at all these restaurants that I would just see but could never afford. I was gonna be going to concerts. I was gonna be fly. But seeing that number for my student loans really made me feel like I couldn't have those things. Because let's say I chose not to prioritize my student loans and I did whatever, I was taking trips, I was like buying expensive clothes, whatever, and maybe 2 years from now I didn't have a job. Yeah, those trips, those clothes were not gonna help me to pay my student debt that would be knocking at my door if I no longer had an income. That was just my truth and my mindset at the time. I don't necessarily think that was the healthiest mindset, as now I've learned much more about balancing, planning for my future, and also balancing how I wanna live now. But at the time, I just felt very worried, I would say, about the amount of debt that I had. Now, everyone is different. Some people have loads of student debt, mortgages, and it's just something that they accept. And they have no issues. They're just like, yeah, I'm going to be paying off my student debt for X amount of time. And they just incorporate that into their lives. I know for me, that's not something I necessarily subscribe to, but I don't think either opinions are wrong. So I'm personally of the mindset where I know that I want to take a lot of risks when it comes to the things that I do in my life, whether I want to change career choices, whether I want to travel a bit, anything that might be. And I know for me to be able to take those risks, I don't necessarily feel comfortable doing that with having a lot of debt. That's why I've decided to prioritize paying off my student loans, and also prioritize not accumulating a lot of debt in the process. So like I said, that is different for everyone. Everyone has to evaluate what is important to them, what they want their lives to look like. However, there's no right or wrong answer necessarily. So with that said, I have decided to prioritize paying off my student loans, and I'm going to show you exactly the plan that I have in place in order to be 100% debt-free. So the first thing I did was I prioritized paying my student loans. So the reason that I was able to do this is because I didn't have any other high interest debt. I didn't have a house, I didn't have children, I didn't have a wedding that I was planning for. So I had no other big obligations to focus on. In my mind, I do expect my finances to be more complicated in the future, and I wanted to ensure that I was able to free up my income so that it was going towards all of my future things as opposed to my student loans. Plus, I know how it goes with money. You put it in your account and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna touch it. I don't have anything to spend it on. And regardless, it's gone. You don't know where it went, you don't know how it went, but it's gone. So instead of having my money just like magically disappear, I decided to be intentional about where I put my money, which was towards my student loans. It was going to disappear anyway, so might as well go towards something that will help my future self as opposed to randomly disappearing. Now, this is not to say that you have to prioritize your student loans. If you have other debt that has a higher interest rate than I would say about 6%, then I would definitely prioritize that instead. However, if you don't have much other things going on and you are able to prioritize your student debt, then definitely stick around because I'll show you exactly how I've done that. The next thing that I am doing to pay off my debt quickly is using the Avalons Method. So with the Avalons Method, I am able to pay my debt that has the highest interest rate first. This is good for me because in the long term, I would be saving more money. Some people opt to use the snowball method, and that is where you make payments to the smallest debt first, regardless of the interest rate, and you work your way up. This is really good because it helps to build up your confidence. Maybe you don't want to tackle the biggest debt that you have and you want to start small. The next thing I'm doing to pay my debt off quickly is I am ignoring my minimum payment. Instead of just paying the minimum, I decided to do an analysis of how much can I actually afford to pay towards my student loans. When doing that analysis, I realized that I could pay more towards my student loans than the minimum payment, and that is what I have decided to pay on. Now, I know that isn't feasible for everyone, but if you do have any extra cash that you can put towards your student loans, I highly recommend that you do that. Every little bit helps. When trying to determine how long it will take for me to pay off my student loans, increments as small as $50 and $100 shaved off years of my student loan repayment.
Great, so what I wanted to do was I wanted to show you this loan payoff calculator so that you can really see how adding maybe $100 to your monthly minimum payment for your student loans could really shave off years of the time that it'll take for you to completely pay off your student loan debt. So I'm just on moneyunder30.com, and this is honestly just a random loan payoff calculator that I found online. But if I scroll down and I go to the loan amount, I can replace this with, let's say, $30,000, which is pretty much the average student loan debt that Americans have. Now I can reduce this interest rate a little bit, let's say to 6 or so percent, and then I want to calculate that by our monthly payment. So let's say that our monthly payment is about $300, and that's the minimum that we're supposed to be paying. So let's say I calculate that, and it's going to take 11.75 years to pay off this loan, and we're paying about $12,300 in interest. So our total loan repayment would be $42,300. Now let's say I changed this number a little bit and I added 100 additional dollars to that a month, and I calculate that. Now as you can see, that is a very different number. We're almost shaving 4 years off of our loan repayment, which is pretty huge. Those are 4 years you're giving kind of back to yourself when it comes to being debt free. And then look at that interest paid. We're paying $8,000 in interest. So that means that we're saving about $4,000, which is huge. So I would really encourage you to look at a loan payoff calculator and really determine, is there anything else I can add to my minimum monthly payment? And if so, how many years would that shave off of my total debt repayment plan?
So the next thing that was really important that I decided to do was to include space for my non-negotiables. Now, you've probably heard me mention travel so many times, but that is honestly something that I love to do. So for me, having a budget that didn't allow for travel would not work for me and for my lifestyle. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I like to go to a ton of really cool places, have a lot of fun while doing so. My other non-negotiable is having the ability to hang out with my friends, whether that's going to brunch, whether that's going to dinner. I love to build relationships with the friends that I have. Now, on the other hand, I definitely did have to compromise in other areas. So for example, I have never lived alone. It is so expensive to live in the DC area. A lot of my peers, they were renting 1-bedroom apartments or luxury apartments in the heart of the city, and believe me, I wanted to do the same thing. It was really important for me to evaluate what did I really need for my apartment. And for me, that was updated appliances, I needed to be close to a grocery store, and I needed to be by the metro. I was able to find a 4-bedroom apartment that had all of those things, but that was a little bit outside of the city. I was probably paying at least half, if not 1/3 of a lot of what my colleagues were paying for their apartments. Not only that, I learned how to do other things so that I didn't have to spend as much money on them. So I learned how to do my hair, I learned how to do my nails, and I meal prepped. So maybe I wasn't able to enjoy the luxuries when it comes to those types of things, but if you ever want to book a flight, I'm your girl. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm making sure that I budget for my non-negotiables, but on the other hand, I spend low on everything else. The next thing I'm doing is I am automating my student debt payments. When I first started paying off my student loans, I really did not automate my payments, and I couldn't see a difference between then and now. I really didn't have as much willpower, I would say, to make that payment every month. So there were months that I would just completely skip paying my loans. So once I started automating my payments, I see so much more progress. My consistency has obviously skyrocketed. And I think what's more important is that I don't give myself the time or the space to negotiate with myself to say, are you gonna pay your loans this month or not? So now it comes right out of my account and there's no discussion. The next thing that I'm doing is I'm ensuring to put any extra cash I get towards my student loans. Now I don't really get that much extra, but when I do make sure to put it towards my student loans. So let's say if like my tax return, for example, that'll go to my student loan payment. If I get a bonus, then I'll also go to my student loan payment as well. I'm telling you, every dollar counts. For me, it doesn't really feel like a sacrifice either because I feel like it's more of a reward. The more I can put towards my student loans, the earlier I'm able to do that, the earlier I'm able to be debt-free, and I feel like that's really a gift to myself. Another thing that I am doing to pay my debt off quickly is 1, I am visualizing myself being debt-free, and 2, I am finding different ways to stay motivated. So I'm currently on track to pay off all of my student debt in the next 18 months or so. It's crazy to see the progress so far. I think that when I first started, in full transparency, I could not really see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm so thankful that I stuck with it and I stayed motivated because fast forward to 2020, I fully see the light at the end of the tunnel and I've made so much progress.
So seeing my debt repayment really helps me to stay motivated because I feel like when I'm looking at it, I can really see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I created this spreadsheet, and you know, we all love a good spreadsheet, and this spreadsheet essentially allows you to put in your original balance. So what was the principal of your loan when you first took it out, your interest rate for the loan, the monthly interest rate, which is pretty much your interest rate divided by 12, the current balance, so what is your loan principal today, how much you decide to pay on your loans every month, and then the spreadsheet pretty much spits out this payoff time frame. So I really love this spreadsheet because I get to see, first of all, what I started with and where I currently am. And that just really shows me the progress over the years. I think a lot of times when you are kind of working at something, it's slow and steady and you don't really see and feel the progress, but when you can see it all in one place, like the spreadsheet, it's really motivating. So love this spreadsheet. Another great thing about this is I can kind of play around with my monthly payment on the spreadsheet to see how it expedites my student loan repayment. So let's say instead of paying $150, I say I'm going to pay $200, and just from adding that additional $100, I see that my payment for this particular loan has decreased by 1 year. So I love this spreadsheet so much because it just gives me so much motivation to just see where I'm at, helps me to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes I play around with these numbers to see, like, if I could really just scrape up an extra X amount of dollars, look at what my payoff could be.
I think one thing that has helped me stay motivated and will also help you stay motivated is creating a journey that is sustainable for you. So making sure to incorporate space for your non-negotiables. So I like to think of it in terms of trying to have a healthier lifestyle. If you cut out everything, cut out all sweets, cut out carbs, and just have a very, very restricted diet, you're going to stick with it maybe a week, and then you're like, yeah, I'm done with this. This is not even worth it. But if you ensure to plan for your indulgences, you know, have a cookie here and there, have ice cream here and there, you're able to, yes, stay on track, but also incorporate space for you to indulge. Being able to have the snacks and different things that you still want to eat help you to stay on track and not feel completely restricted. And then over time, you're able to add in additional healthy lifestyle choices, and it helps you to overall stick to your plan and see more progress. Over the long term, you're really going to see results because you are sticking with it consistently, which is going to increase your results, which is going to increase your progress and then increase your motivation. So it's an amazing cycle. Thank you guys so much for rocking with me through this video. I hope it was helpful. Of course, I have a challenge for you this week. If you are preparing to start paying off your student debts, I challenge you to choose one tip from the tips that I listed earlier in order to start your budget. So whether that is creating your non-negotiables, whether that is determining how much you can spend on your loans, whether that is just tallying up what your loans actually are, I really suggest just one step in the right direction of creating a budget that works for you. If you are already paying off your student loans and maybe your plan isn't quite working for you, I would suggest taking one of the things that I mentioned earlier and really incorporating that into your plan. So whether that means increasing your entertainment section, looking at your payouts so that you can get motivated to pay off your loans, make sure to do one thing that helps to make your budget a bit more sustainable. So comment below on what you decide to implement. I just want to let you know that if you are paying off student debt, you are not alone, okay? You can do it, you will do it, we will all do it. And once we pay off our student loans, we're turning up, okay? We are having a parlay, we are having a party. I just want you to stay motivated, stick to your plan, and just know that it's not about the speed, it's about the direction. So I'm so proud of you guys, and please comment below and let me know how you're going with your student debt. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Bye, you guys.